Hello everyone, welcome back to the next video. In this video I will show you how to bake shadows inside your scene in ThreeJS. So firstly I will show you the output. So this is the output. As you can see, I have one sphere and I'm baking some shadow. Now this shadow, like what baking exactly means is I'm using some texture to for this particular shadow. So this is not a real shadow, I'm like faking it. But this is sometimes useful because shadow causes lots of performance issues as well. I have already made a video on how to cast shadows in ThreeJS like without using any texture, so in case if you are interested in that, do watch that video as well. So let's get started with this one. Here I am using Vite to create one vanilla HTML, CSS and TypeScript project. Then inside package.json I have installed 3, which is for ThreeJS, this dependency, as well as inside dev dependency I have added @type/3. Then inside index.html I have just created one canvas element of id canvas, and style position is fixed, top left is 0 and outline is none, and here we are referencing our TypeScript file. Now these are all the imports for our TypeScript file. In case if you want, you can just copy paste it. So here we are firstly getting hold of our canvas, then I'm creating one scene, then I'm creating ambient light. Okay, now here I have created directional light as well, and the cast shadow I have kept it to false because we are basically baking shadow inside our screen. So to be honest with you, we don't really need this. I'll just do Ctrl S, and if you see, the output remains more or less the same. Then we are just adding directional light as well. Then I'm using texture loader to load the bake shadow. Now if you see my output, sorry, the texture, here is the bake shadow. So this is how it looks like. Again, you can just search on Google for any kind of bake shadows texture and just use that particular one. And once we get that, we are just creating a mesh standard material. Now we are not applying this particular bake shadow texture to our mesh material. Okay, so from this material we are creating one sphere, and the important part is you have to do sphere.cast shadow equal to true. What if I don't do it? I think this is not important, sorry. So even if I don't do it, it's fine because I'm using a texture. Okay, then here I have created one plane, I have created one mesh, so I'm passing the plane geometry, and here you can see I'm creating another material, mesh basic material, and here I am passing the bake shadow. Okay, I think again we don't need this receive shadow as well. Okay, so here you can see, because we are using a texture, so it doesn't really matter. If we had used the default ThreeJS shadows technique, then these all things would matter. Then here I have just added sphere as well as plane, and we are getting the width and height of our screen. Then I created one perspective camera, added it to our scene, created orbit controls, created a WebGL renderer, passing our canvas, and this should make sure this is false, and if this is false, the cast shadow of any of your lights, so suppose I am using directional light, this should be false as well. Okay, otherwise you might get some strange results or errors. And on resize I'm just updating the camera as well as our renderer, and on double click I'm just entering exiting full screen mode. Here I have created one clock. I'm not really doing anything inside the tick function apart from rendering our scene. You can do this outside the tick function as well, in case if you don't want to do anything on the inside this tick function. Like currently I'm not really doing anything, so you can just delete it, but make sure you remove this particular code, renderer.render, and move it over here somewhere, otherwise you won't see your screen. Okay, so this is one of the part. Now I have another texture called simple shadow, so let's quickly see how to do that as well. For an sphere which is continuously moving, like suppose if I'm animating one sphere, I can't have the shadow to be fixed at one place, so this technique of baking shadow will completely fail in our case if we are not if we are baking shadows using texture. So there is a simple technique of how to move your shadows if your mesh itself is moving. So let's see that. Okay, so I have made few changes in the code, but before that I'll show you the output. And here you can see, once my sphere touches the ground, then only you are able to see the shadow I'm not sure if it is clearly visible to you. So here you can see it is a white color shadow or something like that. Hopefully it is visible to you. If not, I'll just remove this opacity part, and this now should be visible to you. So here you can see it must be visible. Okay, but just having the same shadow even if our sphere is not nearer to the screen doesn't make sense. Okay, so I'll just add it back again. So let's see how I've done. So these are all the imports for it. Again, same thing, I have created one scene. This is our ambient light, this is our cast shadow, directional light. Again, we don't need all this stuff. I'll just comment it out. And then here I am using texture loader and I am loading our simple shadow. So this is how it looks like. Then here I have created one mesh standard material, and here I have created one sphere geometry, sphere mesh. Here I have created one plane mesh, and again, we don't really need this. Receive shadow is false. Hopefully it works. Yeah. And this also is not needed. Cast shadow is also not needed. So here you can see it is still working. So then I have just added our plane as well as sphere to our scene. Then what I have done is that I have created another mesh called sphere shadow. So I'm just passing our mesh plane geometry same 1.5 and 1.5, and mesh basic material. Here we are passing alpha map as simple shadow, but the transparent is true. Another thing which I am doing is that the position of x is dot minus mat dot pi multiplied by 0.5, okay, at the very start, and the y position is same as the plane's position, but it is, I have just added 0.01 to avoid z fighting. So suppose if I don't do this, if I do something like this, here you can see there is this glitch effect which is happening. This is called z fighting, so we don't want to do this. That's why I have added 0.01. Then here we are getting the screen width and height, creating our camera, creating orbit controls. This is false for WebGL renderer, and here in case of resizing we are just updating our camera as well as renderer. Double click, we are again exiting, entering full screen, and inside tick, now we are using the tick function because I am moving the sphere on every frame per second, right? So the animation of the sphere bouncing is because of this in circular fashion. Now given that our sphere is moving, we want to move the shadow as well. So for that we can use sphere shadow dot position dot x, assign the same x position of our sphere. The shadow z would be the same. Now the shadow's opacity would be 1 minus sphere dot position dot y, and here you can just add something. So if I don't add something, suppose here you can see that it is just too much, that's why I have just added multiply by 0.3, and then we are just updating our camera and rendering it again, and we are just calling this tick function on every animation frame. So yeah, I think that's it for baking shadows. Thank you for watching. Bye.